Governments are no longer denying it. The military are no longer denying it. And even mainstream media no longer denies it. They're here and have been here for a very long time. The Mutual UFO Network has been on the front lines uncovering the truth since 1969. And now we're sharing the truth with you. Welcome to MUFON's What's Up with hosts Katie Griboski, Christopher Deperno, and Katie Cook, exclusively on the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. Wondering what's up? So are we.
What's up? It is Tuesday night, and you are listening to MUFON What's Up Radio, the show that says discovery starts with curiosity and curiosity starts with MUFON. I am so great you're all here with us tonight. I hope you all had a really fantastic weekend. I know I did, and I'm going to have a little something to share with you on that in a little bit. We are brought to you by kgradb.com. Make sure you get to their website and check out all their great content. Make sure you like and subscribe so we can support KGRA Radio. We are endorsed by MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network, always asking that all-important question, are we alone in the universe? I'd like to introduce my great co-host. We have Katie Cook. You see her on Country Music Television. Hi, Katie.
Hello. I'm so excited for tonight's show. I think we are so lucky that we scored Dr. Lynne Kitei because you know she is so busy for the next week or two with the 25th anniversary of the Phoenix Lights. So this is a big score for us.
Yay. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And also I'd like to bring on New York State Director Chris Deperno, and I think he has a special guest with him as well.
I always have a special guest with me. Hey, it's going to be a great show with Dr. Lynne. I'm telling you, that Phoenix Light thing is one of the best phenomena that's ever happened. It's the real deal, and I can't wait to talk to her. And Jerry can't wait either. He said he wasn't piloting the craft. He says he was in the bathroom at the time, but he did get a shot of the highway. So next time, Jerry, come on. Anyways, we'll have a great show.
Yes. Where do you have to kick us off, Katie?
Well, I always like to kick things off with a funny meme, and I thought this one was pretty cute right here. For those of you just listening, it says aliens faking the Earth landing in 1969. You got to picture this cardboard cutout of a little farmhouse and a cow and the aliens standing there and the lights and the production. Who knows? You never know. I don't think so, but
it's like the moon landing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the moon landing, only it's them landing here. And actually, my friend Jim Delatoso sent that in, one of the world's leading experts in UFO photo and video analysis. So thank you, Jim. That's not him in the background barking, but and let me share the pop of the week with you. Is that your doggy? It's so sweet. Okay, check out this pop of the week. Let me see here if I can get a good shot. Oh, how cute is that? It's a Bigfoot, like for St. Patty's Day. He's got his little shamrocks for his sweetie and his pot of gold. I think that's so cute. Oh yeah, there's a better picture of it right there. Isn't that cute? I love that one. So, of course, as always, you can order these at paranormalpops.com. Get you one in time for St. Patty's Day. And finally, instead of a product this week, I thought I'd do something kind of goofy. I want to suggest a fun activity. First of all, let me show you a picture. Do you know what that is?
No idea.
It's my nose. It's actually my nose. So I got the idea from this guy. I just thought this was so funny. And, sometimes I get bored and I just have to try things. So here is my attempt, Amanda, if you will.
That's the greatest thing ever.
Thank God it washed off. Chris is like, where are we going with this?
Jerry says it's better than trying to do it on your rump. So he says, I'll take the nose, but if you go to the rump, forget about it. He doesn't want nothing to do with it.
Well, I'm going to challenge our viewers to try this at home. Please indulge me. And you can post your pictures on the MUFON WhatsApp Facebook page. I would love to see that. All right. So before we get into news, KDG, you did something really cool this last week, right?
Well, you were drawing aliens on your nose in a hotel room. I went out to the woods and I went camping. So, Amanda, if you want to roll that quick video.
And I'm off to the meadow. So excited.
At Denver International Airport, before the sun comes up, headed off to an undisclosed location.
The inside of DIA. And of course, a great shot from the window. If you can guess what movie I watched on the plane, you can win a prize. Listen to this laugh. I don't know where I am, but this was funny. That wasn't me! Grabbed a little breakfast and coffee while I waited for my ride to get there. Jessica.
So here I am with Jessica. Hi. We are on our way to the Meadows. The Meadow. Can't let people see where the plates are from.
Hey, these are all different states right here, all of them.
Oh yeah, there's South Carolina, California. Oh yeah, we could be on the West Coast.
Are we on the West Coast? Here we are, driving into the campground and getting ready to set up camp. I haven't camped in a tent in quite a while, and thank goodness she brought a nice cot to sleep on. The campfire discussions were super interesting, great company, great fun, and there is Kristen back there helping me try to figure out some anomalous lights that I spotted the night before. Quite interesting and quite compelling. So many things happened with us in this great investigative team. They all work so well together, and I just had a super great time, and I can't wait to get back and do some more investigating and exploring with this super great bunch of people. I hope that you can check out Trey Hudson's book, The Meadow Project, Explorations into the South Skinwalker Ranch. Also check out Into the Portal with Jessica, Oracle of the South on kgradb.com.
The video was a little loud, but boy, what a fun weekend. And I did have some anomalies, some light anomalies and some other magnetic anomalies. So we were hopping different teams. We're experiencing different things. So I got to get Trey his report. And what a great group of people. It was just a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Did I see Grumpy and Matt Delph on the team?
Yes, Matt was there. I know he was really close to Angelia. In fact, Trey's book, Angelia wrote the foreword, I believe, for Trey's book. And so, yes. Angelia's spirit was around that campfire as well.
Good people. Yeah. All right, Chris, you got some news for us this week.
I do. Amanda, give me a second. I got to get ready for the first story here. All right, so.
Oh my.
Jerry's got to get ready too. All right. Wait a minute, Jerry. Come on. All right, so. See, the dog is getting already radiated. Protesters in New Zealand don tinfoil hats to fend off alleged radiation rays. People gathering outside of New Zealand Parliament to protest coronavirus restrictions that have taken to wearing tinfoil hats to fend off what they believe to be radiation rays being unleashed upon them by the government. According to a local media report, a crowd of individuals who have camped out at the building located in the city of Wellington for approximately 3 weeks in an ongoing effort to express their displeasure with the country's COVID vaccine mandates. Last week, several protesters began to fall ill. Many in the group have offered an alternative, rather fantastic explanation for this development: sinister technology. Rumors that the government of New Zealand is using radiation weapons to target the protesters have quickly spread through the group and among their online supporters, who contend that the clandestine tactics are aimed at putting an end to this gathering. Good luck with that. One self-proclaimed expert on the subject even posted a video to a social media wherein he allegedly found a high-potency rays emanating from a concrete block placed near the building by police. As is so often the case with stories circulating online, the claims have taken on a life of their own, leading to many in the group to start wearing tinfoil hats, hence me, which they say repel the radiation poorly aimed at them. I still get headaches, but what do I know? Now, you might be saying, Chris, you're full of BS with this. This is a bunch of crazy garbage. Not so fast, my loyal listeners. My faithful viewers, let us take a step back. Now, back in the 1950s, the Russians were using microwave weapons to drive American diplomats crazy. That's an absolute true story. They were doing that. And so what does the U.S. government do? Now, they, in fact, started what they call Project Panda. Pandora. Pandora was designed to develop and build microwave weapons and behavioral weapons to be used. The Russians have successfully done this, and now so is the U.S. We have gone to the point that we are using microwave weapons in all sorts of intelligence and tactical situations. So, okay, so they got microwave weapons, and you say, Chris, what's this got to do with UFOs? Well, what is now starting to emerge is that people who have had contact with aliens or who have gotten too close to these unknown crafts have developed the same symptoms as victims with microwaves victims. Yes, they are similar, and it is reported that the front part of the brain has been affected by certain experiencers. And this has been studied by Professor Gary Nolan. And now doctors are looking into this. This illness, also known as the Havana syndrome, that's what they're calling it for now. Who knows what they're going to call it, a year from now, has now reached the United States. Pilots, government officials, and others who have encountered UFOs have the same effects as people with microwaves. Could the government have reverse engineered something that is now causing these effects? I don't know, but Amanda, roll that tape.
The U.S. Army Fire Centers of Excellence now has the capability to integrate non-kinetic alongside kinetic effects. The FCOE hosted a directed energy hardware investigation against 2 different types of unmanned aerial systems in September and October of 2013 at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. The objectives of this investigation were to engage real targets with a deployable directed energy system, attack more than one type of threat, engage multiple threats simultaneously, and kill these threats at operationally relevant ranges. Integral to the investigation was Phaser, a deployable high-power microwave, or HPM system, fully capable of organic or third-party target queuing. Operators can choose system parameters to either disrupt or damage the target. The phaser system employed was mounted in a 20-foot self-contained trailer that included an internal diesel generator. 2 different types of unmanned aerial systems were flown into the phaser system's main beam. Both a Sentinel radar and a close combat tactical radar were used to detect and track both UAS threats and were linked through a command view tactical, a modernized command and control system, and networked together by main gate radios. For this initial directed energy investigation, operators kept the phaser system focused on one particular spot in the sky. From 30 September through 3 October, the phaser system engaged and shot down 2 different types of UAS targets, a Tempest Tier 2 UAS and a Flanker Tier 1 UAS. Both engagements took place at the speed of light, and target kill confirmation was immediate. The U.S. Army's Fire Centers of Excellence team has clearly demonstrated it has the capability to lead the Army and joint warfighters into the next generation of warfare.
Now, why do I say this is important, our faithful listeners? Because aliens use telepathic messages. They got to send those messages some way. It's got to be on some kind of frequency or some kind of telepathic thought that has to go from one brain to another. Could that telepathic message be actually causing injury to the brain? Could it be a frequency that actually an alien uses in order to communicate with us? And maybe not, wittingly, Could they be damaging? Because there are pilots, there are government people who have encountered UFOs, and they have had physical injuries from it. Cookie, what do you think?
Well, yeah, after effects with close encounters, it's definitely real. No question about that. We know too many abductees, especially, that have had all kinds of health effects after. I always say to people, I don't know that they would mean to hurt us, but if a UFO's flying over your car, stay in the car. Don't get out. Seriously.
Yeah, that's a good safety tip. Stay in your car.
Stay in the freaking car. Again, whether or not they're trying to hurt us, I doubt it. I don't know. Wonder if I can blame some of my issues on microwave.
That's what I tell my wife all the time. A craft guy got too close to a craft, honey, and I act stupid all the time. So don't blame it on me. It's my brain. She says I married you before that. My brain is just that way. So, Katie G, what do you think?
Oh, go ahead.
Well, I find that Havana syndrome, I mean, that's going on around the world, on the White House lawn, and it's affecting children. So it's a very serious thing. And it's scary to me, because if they can start manipulating our brain in the ways our brain function and control us in that kind of way, that's a very scary, scary thing. So as funny as your tinfoil hat is, and I love the curlicue on top, it's a very serious topic, the side effects from this. So yeah, good story.
And you want to bring a little humor to it, but it is a very serious topic because it's important. Cookie, you were going to say something. Go ahead.
I just want to know what kind of tinfoil you use to get that cute little curl.
I don't know Reynolds.
Okay. I'm going with that. Reynolds it is.
All right, let's get on to our next story there, Amanda. Jerry's going to sit this one out. Monster black holes are headed toward a collision that will rock the fabric of space and time. Guys, get your bottle of bourbon for this one. The two black holes will emerge in about 10,000 years from now and ripple the fabric of space and time in the process. Boy, what a party we could have before that. Astronomers have discovered two supermassive black holes that are 99% of the way to a violent collision that will rock the fabric of space and time. The black holes, which share the name PKS 2131-021, they just can't name it George, are the lock in a dance of doom about 9 billion light years from Earth. The two objects have moved steadily toward each other in about 100 million years, according to a statement from NASA, and now they share a binary orbit with the two black holes orbiting each other every 2 years or so. About 10,000 years from now, the two black holes will merge, sending gravitational waves, ripples in the fabric of space and time, originally predicted by Albert Einstein, surging across the universe. Though none of us will witness the epic event, but I will be drunk for it if I ever do live that long or come back. Study of this could now reveal new information about how supermassive black holes form and what will happen when the two collide. Super black holes that are extremely dark, dense objects that are hundreds of millions of times more massive than the Earth's sun sit at the heart of most, if not all, galaxies. PKS 2131-021, which I'll name lovely George, is a special type of black hole known as a blazar. Basically a supermassive black hole that happens to be pointing a jet of supercharged matter directly at Earth. The two monster black holes are large enough and close enough that they unleash gravitational waves in advance of their collision. Future observations of George will focus on catching those waves in the act. I don't know if I want to wait around 10,000 years just to catch the doom of mankind, but somebody's got to do it. I don't think they're. Amanda, roll that video.
Black holes are the gravitational monsters of the universe. They are so powerful that nothing, not even light, can escape their grasp. One black hole is bad enough, but if you took two black holes and smashed them into each other, they'd be capable of changing the shape of space itself. How epic would that explosion be? And could it somehow reach Earth? This is What If. And here's what would happen if two black holes collided. It turns out that even gravitational giants like black holes occasionally run into each other in the seemingly vast universe. Are you about to see a nuclear bomb-like explosion of supersized proportions? First, you'd see the two black holes getting a little closer until they started to orbit each other. They would begin pulling matter and gas into a vortex between them. But as the two black holes merged into one, they'd wobble a little and then settle down into a new, bigger black hole. Now, I hope you're not disappointed with such an explosion-free outcome. But wait, there's something I haven't mentioned yet. The excess energy from the collision would be expelled back into the universe as gravitational waves. As I mentioned before, colliding black holes can change the shape of the space around them. They do it by rippling this space with gravitational waves. Okay, maybe if that collision happened somewhere in the neighborhood of our solar system, then the merging black holes would rip all the planets in their vicinity to shreds, including Earth. If you really want to look at a black hole, even a single black hole, and not turn into a human-flavored spaghetti noodle, you need to make sure you stay a safe distance away.
Okay. And what do you think, Katie G?
There's some beautiful imagery there, that artwork and stuff. No, yeah. 10,000 years. I don't think we have to worry about it too much. But yeah, I think eventually our wonderful blue ball we call home will be annihilated.
Wow, I got something. Hey, yeah. Just like that year I won't have to buy Christmas presents.
Yeah, so, there you go.
Don't you wonder how they how do they even come up with 10,000 years? Because as it gets closer, it's going to speed up exponentially. Like, how do you even begin to calculate something like that, But I do have that Muse song, Supermassive Black Hole, like going round and round in my head now. So thank you for that.
Well, you're welcome. So I'm just going to go buy a case of bourbon and start celebrating early. And I figure, hey, what the hell?
Your wife, I can only imagine the conversations that you guys have. All right, Katie G, case of the week.
Case of the week. So case of the week this week, it occurred on October 21st, 2021 at 3:21 p.m. Central Time over Skellytown, Texas. I don't know how to pronounce that really. It was closed as an unknown UAV, and I think it's best to just let the investigator tell us about the case, and then we'll show the photos after the video. Amanda?
Shamana. That is Lyran for hello. Or as we say here in Texas, howdy. I'm Ken Jordan. I am the state director for MUFON for Texas. Tonight, we're going to talk about a case that is actually part of a group investigation of similar cases of a project we call Tic Tacs over Texas. We're going to talk about MUFON case 118751. This case came in originally to our chapter Facebook page from the witness. I immediately called her and we started exchanging some emails, and she provided to me a single photograph, which was very interesting. The lady is actually an officer with the U.S. Space Command. She asked to remain anonymous for obvious reasons, but she was on a commercial airplane flying from Colorado Springs to Dallas on business. When she looked out her port side window, she noticed slightly below the airplane and approaching the airplane what she thought at that time was a smaller airplane on fire, because you could see this dark, long, black smoke trail trailing behind it. So she took out her iPhone and took several, but she had one good picture which she shared with us. The original picture was taken at a distance. She originally thought it was about 10,000 feet away. But as we visited and looked at the photo in more depth, we figured it had to be a lot closer. In fact, I am thinking at one point before she lost sight of it, it was probably as close as 400 feet below and approaching the airliner on an oblique angle. They were flying towards Dallas. This object was flying towards Oklahoma City, and she watched it as long as she could until it went underneath the wing of the airplane. She lost sight of it and didn't see it again. What we found out while we were doing the investigation was the craft or the object was in fact egg shaped, or what we call in these days tic tac shape. It looked very much like the tic tac craft that the Navy has been reporting from both the fleets on the east and west coast now since 2004 and on. This object absolutely had no flight control surfaces on it at all. It had no visible source of propulsion at all. What it did not have in this particular photograph that some of the other tic-tac shaped objects in the investigation project are producing was that ominous halo that surrounds these supposed tic-tac objects that we're having reported not only over Texas, but around the country. In fact, last week on the show, Katie had one that anniversary was investigating out of Colorado, which I'm going to include in our Texas investigation because they seem to be very similar to some of the objects that we are investigating in the Tic Tac over Texas project. But on this particular case, this one is clearly not an airplane. It's clearly not a bug. And if you're looking at the picture, you can see there are no wings and no stabilizers. There's no jets. It's a Tic Tac. And I don't know how else you can put it unless the photography was so bad and distorted. But as you all know, we at MUFON are pretty good with doing photo analysis. And I can tell you there's no wings. So this is what we call Tic Tac over North Texas. It was way over North Texas. They were flying at about 34,000 feet AGL. The investigator that's doing the follow-up on it is a pilot himself. He is trying to get more information from FAA on any radar contact so we can verify the altitude and the speed. We don't quite have that yet. So, but we do have this photo, and it is pretty revealing, and I think it's kind of exciting. So there is our Tic Tac over North Texas.
Thank you, Ken. Okay, so Amanda, let's show photo 1. This is the original photo that came in from a distance that the witness took from the aircraft. So if we can go ahead and go to the zoomed in photo. That's it, a little more zoomed in. And then the third photo, I went ahead and changed some contrast on it. I looked this photo over so well, and he's right. There's just nothing. It is definitely very tic-tac shape. It's really curious. I do not know what that streak is, what it's emitting. It's just super interesting. So super cool case. Thank you, Ken, for the video. Cookie, Chris, what do you guys think?
Wow. Yeah. What is that huge stream in the back?
Yeah. I have no idea. What do you think, Chris?
I've been studying plasma and the a lot of sightings of stuff have had some type of streams and some type of plasma effects. And I think maybe at their speeds that they're going, that sometimes they leave like a plasma trail. That has been seen before because of their very high speeds. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's excess energy coming off the craft as it's going. Remember, that craft is if you look at warp theory, that craft is actually making a hole in front of it, compressing that energy. Well, that energy behind it has to go somewhere, and it could very much expand out. So as that craft is going forward this way, that energy from behind, it's almost like a rocket. A rocket has energy going backwards and forward. So I think it's the real thing. I can tell you it's not a leaf.
Yeah.
Okay, so how's that?
Right. Well, I'm really happy to hear Texas has a whole program just for these tic-tac shaped objects. So really cool. I think we're going to hear, hopefully, Chris, you got a video from Bob Spearing, and then we will get to our special guest, Dr. Lynne, right after that. So
I did. Yes. Bob Spearing sent us another mystery video and try to explain a little bit of it, and he wants to hold it tight to his chest until they absolutely find out what it is. Amanda, why don't we roll that tape?
Hi, everybody. This is Bob Spearing. I'm MUFON's Director of Investigations on the international side. This coming July in Denver at our symposium, we'll be doing a presentation on the top 5 cases of interest that MUFON were submitted to MUFON this year, and we're going to analyze all 5 of those cases. I've picked one today with 2 excellent videos and a still photograph to show you. The incident was filmed by a hiker in a very, very remote part of Washington State called Crystal Lake this past August. And I'd like Chris to roll the first video right now, and I'll explain as we're going along. Roll it, Chris. The object was seen slowly moving across the water. At the 10-second mark, when it comes back into the video, it's going to turn, and right there, it actually looks like a 1950s pillow that would have a button in it. We've reached out to the Department of Ecology in Washington State to try to get an answer as to what this object might be. If you think it might be a balloon, let's look at the next video where it stays hovering in one place for an extended amount of time. Roll the second video, please. You can see its shadow, which means it's not laying on the water, it is directly over the water. If this was a balloon, this would not stay in one place. We have other theories as to what might be going on here, but again, the individual who filmed this is 30 miles from the nearest civilization. What is this that's just staying in one place in this remote part of Washington State? And to wrap it up, we have a still photograph that the gentleman who was hiking took a picture of, and this is a close-up of the object as it is skimming across the top of the water. Let's show the last picture. I don't know, would a balloon drag like that? Would a drone drag along the water like that? You can see it's flying at an angle and the shadow below it, and it's trailing water. If you'd like to know what our conclusions are about this video, this photograph, this case, please come to Denver, because I'm not at liberty, I'm sorry, to tell you what the resolution is. That's it for me today. Thank you, Chris, for having me on, and hopefully I'll see you next week.
Tease again. He's such a tease.
I'm going to have to talk to him about his teases. I had to call him up and say, listen, you know, Bucko, you're going to have to just give us what the deal is. But I can tell you, that's one of the best videos and one of the best still photos I've seen. I mean, something like that doesn't skim across the water. You wouldn't put a drone that close to the water. I would not think so.
And you wouldn't think a balloon would have the weight of it. You know, it's so light and airy. Would it compel it?
Yeah, I mean, balloon will go up in the air, but it just balloon doesn't kind of skim across the water, you know, and then go up in the air, come down, do this, that, you know.
Yeah, I could hear the wind noise, but I didn't, and I thought I saw water movement, but I didn't see any movement in the trees or the leaves. I was trying really hard to see that. I'd like to be able to analyze that more, but Bob certainly knows what he's doing. So
thank you, Bob. All right, I think it is that time to bring in our special guest, Dr. Lynne Kitei. Dr. Lynne is an internationally acclaimed physician and health educator who has been called the woman pioneer of medical communications and TV. She has dedicated over 40 years to global public awareness, wellness, and health education. Dr. Lynne pushed aside her successful medical career to pursue the Phoenix Lights book and an internationally award-winning documentary project. She was a key witness to the historic and still unexplained mass sighting throughout Arizona on March 13th, 1997. She's been featured on Fox TV News, Fox in the Morning, ABC, CNN, and CBS affiliates, 8 News, now Las Vegas with George Knapp, Dateline NBC, National Geographic TV, the Travel, Science, Discovery, and History channels. Dr. Lynne has been a keynote speaker at countless UFO conferences, including the MUFON Symposium. The Phoenix Lights documentary film has won over a dozen international film festivals. Like Katie said earlier, we are honored to have Dr. Lynne as our guest tonight. Welcome.
Welcome, Doctor.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you, Cookie and Katie and Chris and Amanda and your audience, because MUFON from day one, we're going to get into this, has had a very dear place in my heart, I have to say. It's amazing, anything you've heard before. There's so much mis and disinformation out there that after 7 years of anonymity, after thousands of people saw what I had been seeing for 2 years prior and documenting on film, the only one with 35mm film, it's in the negative, it can't be manipulated, as well as the signature video on March 13th, 1997, during the mass sighting. After thousands of people saw what I had seen, I pushed my whole medical career, accomplished medical career aside to find a logical source and meaning for what I had witnessed and photographed, and I have yet to find it 25 years later. If anything, my meticulous inquiry, doing the homework for myself, because I had no interest or knowledge in the topic at all before my husband, who's also a physician and a healthy skeptic, had a very close sighting to our home in 95, opened up a whole new world to me that ultimately, as a scientist, trying to be as scientific as I could with the data, as a physician, to let people know that they're not crazy, even though most anomalies can be explained. Only a small percentage cannot. Just because we don't have the technology yet to definitively define what these things are, it doesn't mean they're not real. So it's time we get this topic out in the open, address it, accept it, and study it, so we can find out not only who's driving these things, but also move forward in our own evolution.
Yes. Well said. Well said. I would, really well said. I'd like to start the show by talking about, the big 25th anniversary event you have coming up. So if you'd like to talk about that.
Pretty amazing that it's 25 years later. And after I finally came forward in 2004 with the first edition of the book, it's now in its fourth edition as we keep adding, as it keeps evolving. So does the documentary. In 2005, we had the premiere at the Scottsdale Harkin Shea Theater. We've been sold out every year since, because not only do we show the documentary, and it's one of the only, as far as I know, mainstream events where anyone can come, and certainly many people out there, even if they saw the Phoenix Lights or heard somebody that did, or curious, don't really have a place to go other than MUFON. And I always have MUFON there as a guest to let people know that it's a place where they can go and have, especially in Phoenix, they have the monthly meetings. It's the gold standard. I have to say, it's an amazing chapter, and learn and grow from it. So this I host every year now. This event at the Scottsdale Harkin Shea Theater. Our major event is March 13th, the 25th anniversary, and then the week after, the Sunday after, for anyone in the area, and we have them flying in for this event actually, is Sunday, March the 20th from 1 to 5. We show the documentary, very gentle overview of the topic on the big screen, which is very exciting. Then we have speakers. We have incredible speakers, including the Navajo Rangers, law enforcement who are studying these phenomena, and had a big sighting the day before over the range. We can get into that, and the Native American connection, which is awesome in itself. We have Travis Walton visits us every year, and he actually had a Phoenix Light sighting as well. This year, besides wonderful speakers, and Frances Barwood, our councilwoman, we'll get into her. She was the only elected official that actually asked for an investigation months later. We also have a Q&A this year from Alice Cooper, rock star Alice Cooper, who is a resident Arizona favorite. And he actually not only saw it on March 13th during the mass sighting, but he had another sighting in 2000 that he talks about. So we have the film, we have speakers, a dozen speakers actually, and we also have the Q&A. They literally have to throw us out of the theater, because once people come as strangers but leave connected. Once they see the Phoenix Lights film itself, it really opens people up, and then the speakers themselves get into such detail, and by the Q&A, it's like they don't want to leave. So, and that's our latest film. It's available streaming on Amazon and Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. And so we're really excited. It's one of over a dozen international film festival awards, which we're so proud that it's a real grassroots effort, but the content is really important and powerful.
Love
Thank you for mentioning it. Yes, please. Anybody in the neighborhood, and it sells out every year. So please get your tickets now. Phoenix Lights Network website, www.thephoenixlights.net, has a link, and also Phoenix Lights Network on Facebook. If anybody's on Facebook, can look it up, and there's a link there directly to reserve seats this year, and it's selling out fast. So I hope you can join us.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to being there for sure.
And another thing I should mention is that in July, we also will be showing the documentary at the MUFON International Symposium in Denver. And we have special guest Peter Davenport, the head of the National UFO Reporting Center in Seattle, Washington, who made a very amazing statement, which I'm going to share with you in a few minutes, as well as one of the really amazing witnesses, up close witnesses with her family. So I hope that you'll join us there if you can't join us in Phoenix on March the 20th.
Good stuff.
Hold on one second. I just think you, Doctor, you had me thinking about something. I can't imagine what the conversation would be with Alice Cooper and an alien. Can you imagine the two of those guys talking?
Oh yeah, he's a riot.
The aliens turn around and go, "I'm not coming back here. Dude, we're getting back in the ship and we're getting the hell out of here." You know?
I just have this image of the alien putting the makeup, or Alice putting the makeup on the alien, you know, like sending him back with some golf clubs. You know, he's a big golfer.
He's really into the topic, by the way.
I love that. I love that. So I think we've got plenty of time before break. We should probably go back. And I know everybody's heard of the Phoenix Lights. They have a basic idea of what happened, but I'd love to get your unique perspective. I know you've got some photos you can show us. So if you would just kind of give us a little bit of your timeline there.
Absolutely. And I have to tell you, anything you've heard about one or two events, put it aside, because that's one of the reasons that I came forward, not only as a scientist to be as eloquent with the data as I could, as a scientist and a physician, to say that, you're not crazy, even though most anomalies can be explained. And it's important to share too, because when one has a paranormal experience, it's real for that person, and to not share it festers, and it's very cathartic to share. As an experiencer myself, I know what that feels like. And let's go back to 1995. And I'll make this as short as I can, because as the story unfolds, it's really, really interesting in and of itself. Because in 95, again, without any interest or knowledge in the topic at all, my husband and I both had a very, very close sighting to our home. If you can put up that first picture, Amanda, I'll show you the topography, which is really important, because we're pretty high on the mountain in Paradise Valley, and we have a panoramic view of the city skyline. We're very blessed to be able to enjoy that each evening when we're home. And I shot this picture because if you notice, there's a car on the road on the left bottom, and the lights reflect onto the road, very unlike the true unknowns, which are self-contained light, which we'll get to. On the right of that car is a skylights on a house, on a stream of skylights there on the right, which coincides, if you look straight up, with South Mountain on the left and Estrella Mountains a little further back. And there's a little story, I don't believe in coincidence anymore, 6 months before the mass sighting. And as an educator, ultimately of vital health issues for now 50 years, I felt so obliged to share this issue. But at the time, I had curriculum that I was invited to present the substance abuse prevention education program at the Gila Bend Indian Reservation, GILA, which is in the basin between South Mountain on the left and a few miles back, the Estrella Mountain Range. And after the mass sighting, in science, we look for repeatability, and anyone that's near a website can get on, and a computer can get on the Phoenix Lights Network website photo page, my unique collection of 35 millimeter photographs that have been analyzed through the years by military and university optical experts. No one can tell me what they are. They can tell me what they're not. But in the meantime, I presented my substance abuse program 6 months before the mass sighting at the Gila Bend Indian Reservation. And here, If you look at the pictures, you'll see that these phenomena keep popping up from our vantage point right where South Mountain and the Estrellas intersect. So I called up the principal and I said, did anybody happen to see strange lights on March 13th? And he started to giggle. And I said, is that funny? And he said, are you kidding? We've been looking up at them for centuries. We call them sky beings, but sky people, light beings. I never had any idea of this. It was the first that I had learned indigenous cultures, especially Native Americans in Arizona, are so open to these other intelligences. In fact, the Hopi have protocols to invite these phenomena in, intelligences in, and they believe these orbs that we're going to be talking about, some of them believe that they're spirit world or ancestors coming to give them knowledge and comfort and inspiration. And I've certainly been inspired to do what I'm doing. I'd have never chosen this, but nonetheless, he said that's how the Estrella Mountains got its name. It means star in Spanish, gateway to the stars. And they believe that there is a gateway or portal in that area. And again, in science, we look for repeatability. So if you're on the website photo page, Phoenix Lights Network photo page, you can see that these phenomena keep popping up in that area. Now, take us back to 1995. And I'm leisurely taking a bath. It was the eve of my birthday. Again, I don't believe in coincidence because this is like the most amazing gift that anybody could get. And my husband was standing at the wall. One wall of our bedroom is a window. And he was standing there talking to my mother-in-law back east, born and raised in Philadelphia. And she was calling from there to wish me a happy birthday. And he was on several hospital and medical boards at the time. Nothing ever ruffled his feathers, but suddenly he sounded alarmed. He says, Lynn, get over there quick. What the hell is that? And I grabbed my tail, wringing wet, get to the window, and a little below us, and we're pretty high up on the mountain, and it's a gated community nestled in the mountains. There is no way this was military. And I'm talking like less than 100 yards from our home were 3 amber orbs, one on top and 2 closely aligned underneath. And I looked underneath to see if anybody was creating it. And it was very treacherous desert landscape, and it's gated anyway. No one should be there. And it was pitch black. And I thought to myself, if I don't get a picture of this, and I thought, wait a minute, let me take everything in mentally. And I tried to take the size, the shape, the color. They were about 3 to 6 feet each, depending on how close they were. Interestingly, and you mentioned this earlier, Chris, that the orbs themselves, and I call them an orb because the light did not extend outside the edge, were oval shaped, like an egg. Now, I don't know if they're related to the Tic Tac or what they're talking about now, the Navy pilots, but nonetheless, they were oval shaped. And the light within each orb was a uniform amber color throughout. It didn't glare at all. Every other light out there glared. I noticed immediately. And I thought, if I don't get a picture of this, no one's going to believe it. And I go running to the closet to grab my 35 millimeter that I keep handy for the beautiful sunsets. I collect sunsets. And my husband calls me back. He says, get over here quick. One of them is disappearing. And I always go back to this sighting, the 95 sighting, 2 years before the mass sighting, because we watched the top orb without budget. And it's very difficult to describe in logical terms, started to shrink slowly, like a dimmer switch, getting smaller and smaller mechanically, as if there was an intelligent presence behind it, and smaller till it was pea size and then disappeared. But it felt like it was still there. And I jump out on the balcony from a sliding glass door that's perpendicular to that window, take a quick picture of the 2 lower orbs. And Amanda, if we can take a shot of that, there you go. At the left bottom are the 2 lower orbs. That's how close they were, okay? And I immediately noticed an eerie silence, as if time had stopped. It was just bizarre. And going through my mind, because it really felt like something was watching me as intently as I was watching these 2 lower orbs. I thought, who are you? What are you? Do you know that I'm here? I'd love to meet you. The next thing I remember, next picture, the left bottom orb started to shrink. Thank you, Amanda. And I caught a picture of that. Something told me to take a picture, and which is amazing because I had this, Instamatic camera, 35 millimeter. I actually caught one half disappear, the left bottom orb as it was disappearing, and the right one still there. But I didn't even know who to show it to. I knew nothing about this topic at all. And I just wondered for 2 years what this advanced technology was. Now, I'm going to fast forward here before I get to January of 97. 3 years after the mass sighting, we had another sighting that was quite riveting that we have video of in the film, of straight lines and mirror images. And the final thing is a giant pyramid of three lights that four of us from north, south, east, and west happened to catch her on video. And I had been instructed, I stayed anonymous, and I mean anonymous. Only a handful of people knew what I had that were actually testing my data. And I was advised to contact Navy optical physicist, very respected, Dr. Bruce McAbee, about my data. And I figured, now's the time. So I contacted him. And as an afterthought, I had sent the video. I put the first and the last picture in the package. And he called me a couple weeks later and he said, Dr. Lynne, you said that close sighting in 95 was only a couple minutes long. I said, right. He said, are you sure? Now, interestingly, my husband was inside. I was outside while I was taking the pictures. He would never talk about it. He would get agitated. To me, it was awesome and wondrous and all this. Everybody comes from a different background, from a different upbringing, from a different belief system. Some people can't deal with this topic. Some people don't want to, and that's okay. Everyone in their own time. If people have to feed into the flare theory, which has never been proven, by the way, and we'll get to that, so be it, if it gives them comfort. But in the meantime, the data speaks for itself. And he said to me, well, you know what? Look at the data. If we can go back to that first picture of the 95 sighting, the first picture of the 95 sighting, the next one. Thank you. There we go. If you notice, and he was the first to notice, if you look at the arrow on top, there are 4 lights in a row. Interestingly, which we'll see in 97, that's the same exact location and the same exact phenomena, UAP. In that picture in 95, and if you go to the next picture, disappearing while we're looking at the close orbs, which now there's 2. And also you can notice that the orbs on the right actually moved because now on the right side of those house lights. And if we go back to the first picture again in that series, and again, I always go back to this because it's so powerful and important. He said, look at the skyline. He said there are many groups of lights on in the first picture, not just individual lights, groups of lights that are off in the last picture. He says that doesn't happen in a couple minutes. He says, I want you to do an experiment. He was really meticulous in his research and his study of this. He said, go out on the balcony, shoot the skyline, and mind you, it's 3 years later, one night every hour, the next night every half hour, and I did it another night every 15 minutes to see when those groups of lights start going out. The first picture is because I usually take a bath between 7 and 8 when we're home. So let's be conservative and say 8 o'clock is the starting point here. The last picture is indicative of 10:30, 11 o'clock. And he actually did it again for a National Geographic show that showed even more lights were on in the first picture that were off in the last picture. And if you go to the next one, he meticulously took the first picture and actually compared it to the last picture and said to me, and those are the groups of lights that are off. And like I said, there's even more now that we found out with better software. And he said, can I present this case at the upcoming MUFON International Symposium 1999? And I said, in Washington, D.C., and I said, Dr. McAbee, this is your baby. I would have never noticed this data. Please just keep my name out of it. And he was so kind, as were the handful of other people, to keep me strictly anonymous. They actually called me at Village Labs, Dr. X, the person that had the pictures. And he presented the case in 1999 at the MUFON International Symposium in Washington, D.C. as the first, and as far as we know, the only authenticated photographic evidence of missing time. What I told you is what I remember. There's a lot more to this story. Anyway, we fast forward to 97, having seen nothing remotely similar to these orbs that we saw up close and personal. I'm lying in bed, look out the window. This is January of 97. I see 3 orbs, giant orbs at a distance far north in a line formation. I'm thinking, wait a minute. They're huge amber orbs. They're in an equidistant line formation, hovering for minutes. And it looked like they imploded, just like 95, from right to left. And I thought, whoa, strangely similar to 95. I mentioned it to my husband. And like I said, he really didn't want to talk about it. He said, do I still have to go to work tomorrow? Okay, he would make jokes out of it. The next morning, the next evening, He was at a medical board meeting. And I come up to the bedroom. And again, when we're in the bedroom, because one wall is a window, we get to see whatever pops up out there. But I happen to notice the same 3 orbs in a line are now in front of South Mountain. And I knew they were in front of South Mountain because there's red blinking lights on top of South Mountain alerting planes coming into Sky Harbor International Airport that are in front of South Mountain. So I thought, enough. I get my video camera, go outside. I got about 18 seconds worth before the battery went dead. Go inside, hook it up, go outside. They're gone. This was about 8 o'clock, 8:30. My husband comes up the drive, and we're pretty up there. And I go outside. I said, honey, remember the 3 orbs in a line, ecosystem line formation last night that I told you were far north? What about a half an hour ago? They were right in front of South Mountain. As I'm pointing like this, they reappear in the same spot. And I thought, whoa, I got to get a picture of this. And I have to say here that in video, it doesn't do the orbs justice. They're much smaller. They're white. They flicker, even though the formations themselves are very compelling. But 35 millimeter, they're in the negative. So I run upstairs, I grab my 35 millimeter, I get out on the balcony. Suddenly,
wait a minute, doctor.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. We're going to take a short break here because that's the point where we want the listeners to come back and say, what did you take a picture of? So we're going to go to break right now. We're going to come back with a doctor with a fascinating story. I'm running downstairs to grab some popcorn, and we're going to enjoy the rest of this. This is fascinating.
There's much more to this story.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be right back.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Hey members, the new KGRA-DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA-DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA-DB.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button, so just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
All right. Well, we're back with Dr. Lynne and the most exciting story about the Phoenix Lights there is. I went downstairs, grabbed a bunch of popcorn, shoved it in my mouth, spitting it all the way back up here. Dr. Lynne, you were about ready to take some pictures of something. Let's get right back into it.
This is where it really, really gets interesting because these are pictures that I took 2 months before the mass sighting. As I was starting to describe, I saw the 3 lights pop up in front of South Mountain suddenly, and I run upstairs. I grab my 35 millimeter. I get out on the balcony just as I'm ready to shoot the 3. Suddenly, 6 lights across, totally equidistant from each other, massive span, pop up over the 3. And if we can go to that first picture of there we go. It's wavy because I was shaking. I have to admit. Yes, because not having an explanation for the close 95 sighting, and I had no idea that they were in the background then too, okay, in the same location in 95. The first thought was like, oh my goodness, this is over a mile wide. Is this a mothership or a fleet? But I kept clicking away, which the next picture to me is the smoking gun, because this shows 5 lights, looks like a V, right, with 2 underneath. Well, 2 months later, during the mass sighting, thousands of people would describe 5 lights in a V formation with 2 trailing lights from what they were seeing. This is 2 months before the mass sighting. Same exact phenomena. Next picture shows as the lights underneath are disappearing, now there's 1, the top formation is turning into a V shape. And the last picture of the series is a V shape where we've had this all analyzed by military and university optical experts down at the University of Arizona. The head of the Optical Science Department took great interest in this, as did the dean of students at Brooks Institute of Photography and others. If you see, every other one is bigger than the one in between, which we don't know if that's the closer arm is the bigger ones and the further away arm are the smaller orbs, if there's a force field in between or whatever. But I was so curious, I called around, and the story is much longer. I'll try to make it short. And the next morning, called around, found air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport who saw the same thing at the same time as I was filming these, who shared with me that it was over Class B restricted airspace at the 30-mile radius around the center of the airport. Anyone that comes into that airspace must call into the tower, and no one did. At 8 o'clock, they got alarmed, so they looked on radar when they saw the 3 pop up, and then they disappeared. At 8:30, when the 6 popped up, then they really got nervous, looked on radar, didn't show up on radar, and in their own words, they picked up their binoculars, and these are professional sky watchers, saw 6 points of light totally equidistant from each other, massive span over a mile wide. In their own words, it seemed to be attached to something, but they couldn't quite see what these lights were attached to or had a force field holding them in rock solid formation. And one of them was a meteorologist and tuned in and said the entire thing turned as a unit against the wind. That is significant. And then elevated slowly in synchrony and moved behind South Mountain. So I said, so what was it? And there was silence. And then one of them said, beats me. I said, you're air traffic controllers. You're supposed to know it's in our airspace. They ruled out every conventional aircraft, balloons, Chinese lanterns, flares, as well as holograms, and even skydivers with lights. We kept in contact up until and including March 13th, 1997. Now, an interesting story that I'm going to just interject here before we get into March 13th, 1997, because whatever you've heard, that it was 1, it was 2 hours, whatever. Yes, most people were outside between 8 and 10 looking up at the sky at the Hale-Bopp comet, but there is so much more to this story. But right before, 2 weeks before, my husband was getting a little annoyed running out every time that I saw these lights. I would say, hold that thought, and I would run out and take pictures, the scientist in me. And I finally, and this is how close I was, I knew nothing about this topic. A friend of a friend had a neighbor who had a friend who knew the past president of MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, who I had not heard about. I never heard of MUFON before. And I contacted him. I told him my husband and I had been seeing these. He hadn't heard about it, but there were other people that were seeing them and photographing them days before, like I had been. And he refers me to a field investigator for the following Wednesday, who calls me on Tuesday to say the then state director, Tom Taylor, wanted to be there Wednesday morning, but his mom had passed on Saturday. The funeral was Wednesday morning. Could we postpone? And I thought, oh, geez, I have for another 2-3 weeks. I am so busy. But Friday morning, I have a window of opportunity about 10 o'clock. He said, fine. I knock on his door. He opens the door. The first thing he says to me is, did you see the mass sighting last night? And I said, well, I saw something very similar to what I saw 2 months ago that I told you about. In fact, I called the air traffic controllers this morning, and they verified it was the same exact phenomena, UAP, in the same exact location over Class B restricted airspace, 1,000 altitude. And I happened to get video of it last night. I have it on tape. He said, wonderful, because NBC was coming to interview him in a half an hour. I said, whoa. I did health tips for NBC in Philadelphia in 76 and also in the early 80s in Arizona. I said, look, this isn't about me. I don't know what we're dealing with here, if it's military or a hoax or whatever. But it's not about me. It's about the data. And just get a copy, or take a copy of what I saw last night, which was the 3 endpoints of a giant V or triangle, and share it with whoever. I'm out of here. And I left. And what's interesting is that afternoon, I didn't know if the news would cover it, but I was sitting in front of my VCR TV. And from 4 o'clock on, my video was plastered on every news station. He gave it to everyone. It was amazing. It was really exciting. After seeing these things for a couple years, now people were seeing what I had seen. And by 10 o'clock news, a couple other videos came out. And this is significant too. 2 of ours, mine and another one, actually, Steve Blonder was seeing them for days before, as I was, and photographing him, called MUFON up to his balcony. MUFON has been connected from day one, up to his balcony the night of the mass sighting, and they actually caught an arrowhead of 5 lights. It is so impressive. Those lights are attached to something or have a force field in between. Just look at the data. I always say, look at the data. It speaks for itself. And if I can be a credible voice, so actually people will look at the data, then I've done my job. But look at the data. But at any rate, after 10 o'clock, and ours were before 10 o'clock. After 10 o'clock, there were 2 boomerangs, okay? And we'll get to those in a second, which are very impressive. But for the first time, I was hearing that thousands of people were seeing what I had been seeing. And then that following Tuesday, I see my video. It was big news here, plastered on the TV again. And they're interviewing a fella who had a giant computer lab out in Tempe near Arizona State University. You mentioned him, Cookie, earlier, Jim Delatoso, who had been also analyzing other videos from all over the world, other countries, and showing the same thing that my husband and I saw, these triangle formations of orbs from Russia and UK and you name it. I mean, I was Belgium, I was blown away. I had no idea that this was happening worldwide. And from that day on, I pushed my whole accomplished medical career aside to keep an intricate journal of everything, of media reports, of military reports, which there were none. That's very interesting. I'll get to that, as well as witness reports. But anyway, on March 13th, for anyone that's not familiar, or even if you are familiar.
Really quick, Dr. Lynne, I'm going to interrupt you really quickly.
Sure.
Because before we get to the March 13th, which happens to be my son's birthday, by the way, and my mom witnessed the Phoenix lights as well. So this is personal to me. She was in Mesa. She was living out there at the time. So, but back to your sighting a few months earlier, fantastic pictures, by the way. And I think it's so cool that you notice the brightness, then dimmer, then bright, then dimmer. And I don't know what that means. But the second photo, I believe, Amanda, go back. Oh, yeah, right there, that one. Were there 2 separate objects there?
That what people would describe. Okay, I'm going to get to that.
Okay.
Because what people would describe on March 13th was really significant. I mean, I'm getting to that, but I will address this. But many of them, and we have radio interviews with people that said that they saw 5 lights with 2 trailing. Now, some people only saw lights that were in a rock solid formation that seemed to be attached to something, as the air traffic controllers mentioned, or actual craft. And I'm going to get to that because there were multiple craft. On March 13th, 1997, while thousands of people were looking skyward for a glimpse of the Hale-Bopp comet, they also caught a glimpse to Mile and Peter Davenport. You will be seeing him at the MUFON International Symposium in July and can ask him, because we did a conference out in Oregon for the 20th anniversary, and he actually shared during his talk that one of the objects from all the data that he's collected all these years on the National UFO Reporting Center was indicative of 8 miles wide. Okay, just think about that. Wow. 1 to 8 miles wide. We had a number of people say there were 2 or 3 miles wide, but that was the first. I thought he was kidding, but he wasn't. Okay, so we're talking these orbs in rock solid formation, these giant balls of light. that either were attached to something or actually on craft. Now, here we go. It wasn't one or two events, okay? And it wasn't for just a couple hours. Yes, most people called in to the news people and whatever between 8 and 10 because they were outside between 8 and 10. But the mass sighting on March 13th actually started at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. There were daylight sightings in Arizona. At 5 o'clock hour, Native Americans were seeing them in New Mexico. 7 o'clock hour and beyond in California. 10, 11 o'clock hour, there were two commercial airline pilots, and it took one of them years before she got in contact with me to tell me this, that actually called into radar because they were on approach to Las Vegas, and one of these massive craft covered Las Vegas. And I'll get to the craft in a second. The sightings continued all the way until 5:30 the next morning when a Boeing crew, and I was told by a Boeing crewman personally, who was very credible, that his whole crew was coming into Sky Harbor International Airport the next morning at 5:30, and one of these mile-wide craft was right over his tarmac. Okay, so we're talking over a dozen hours, over 4 different states. And what we're talking about, the technology alone, and I'm going to get to how it affected the people personally. That is a big story. But we're talking massive, massive, not only these orbs, but actual craft. And if you go to the GAP page, GAP, Geospatial Animation Project on the Phoenix Lights Network website, you will see beautiful illustrations as well as animations of these craft. It was a 12-year study. 2 or more people had to see the same craft to be in the study. And it was concluded not only that there were 10 different craft, and some of them look really different, even disc shape and V shape and triangle shape, but they also, whether it was one craft that could morph, or the perspective from where the person was standing, or an actual parade, which is what was concluded, because not only were there multiple UAP happening throughout Arizona at the same time, whether it was orb formations or these craft, okay, but also over 4 states. So we're talking about a massive parade on March 13th, 1997 in 4 different states for over a dozen hours. And
sort of like a UFO parade, right?
There you go.
Hey,
And here we go.
Wait. I got to ask you a question, Doctor,
Sure.
because I
Sure.
mean, to me, you're a very brave person. I absolutely admire you with the story that you're telling. But I admire you because you're a medical doctor. You're taking this as a scientific approach to this. But we know that people who spoke out about this got a lot of pushback in Arizona.
We're going to
Now,
talk
you're
about
an
that.
internationally acclaimed doctor and health educator. You come out, you push this. You're probably a fantastic practice. By the way, I got a pain here over on the side. I got to talk to you later.
We'll get to that later.
But you take this thing over onto the side and you say, I know what I saw. I know what's going on. And I'm going to tell the world about it, which you have remarkably, admirably. But you got to tell me there were people saying, Doctor, you need to shut up about this.
Well, I'm going to get to that because it was an extremely difficult choice to come forward. We all have choices, right? And there's a lot of soul searching going on. I'm going to get to that. It's a wonderful question. Thank you for asking, Chris. And I am going to get to that because it's
don't forget about
a turning point in my life. But anyway,
like, oh my God.
What's that? Don't forget.
Don't forget about the pain over here. I mean, I don't know if it's gas or what. Are you an internist? I'm looking for a good
internal
internist.
medicine and adolescent medicine.
You're my hero now.
But anyway, getting back to the mass sighting, here we're talking about technology that we have not seen in 25 years. I mean, we're talking about these massive craft, and people saw gunmetal at the bottom, but some people saw windows with beings at the windows, right over people's heads, rooftop level, gliding 30 miles an hour. Okay. Some people saw it take off at blink speed, totally silent. I mean, we don't know what the propulsion to keep these things up, but totally silent and taking off at blink speed without even dispersing the air. Some people saw these orbs detached from the main object, go out into the environment. There's a picture on the Gap page. You can see one of the craft that people saw, these orbs detach and go out into the environment and then redock with it later. Some people have asked, is that what happened in 95 with the close sighting? Because the same exact phenomena is in the same exact location at a distance. The pictures speak for themselves. They're in the negative. They cannot be manipulated. I don't know. I'll leave that up to the viewer. I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. It's just letting the data out there and let people decide for themselves. The other thing that was amazing is that one of the crafts split in two and shot straight up. And there was a call at 3 a.m. the following morning from an alleged crewman from Luke Air Force Base. We have part of that recording in the documentary so people can hear it first off. Very professional, very detailed, that military jets were sent out from Luke Air Force Base to intercept one of these over mile wide craft that was hovering right over central Phoenix. And we have civilians that saw this too. As they approached, the lights dimmed, and then the entire thing blinked out and it disappeared. And this alleged crewman said that he helped one of the pilots out of his craft because he was so shaken up by it. And Luke was on lockdown after that. So we know they were very well aware. The military was very well aware of what was happening. And we're going to get more into what they finally came up to it with after months, after this incredible sighting, where not only the technology was incredible, but how it affects people at real time and long term. I have to say here that there has not been one in 25 years, not one credible report of harm, threat, or abduction associated with the Phoenix Lights anomalies. Can't speak for other things, but I can about the Phoenix Lights. If anything, it was
There were no physical injuries from people. No physical. Nothing. That's amazing.
Nothing. If anything, it was just the opposite. People were in awe and in wonder and just curious. So many people pulled off the road to see what was going on because it was that unusual. And I've had more people tell me through the years, till today, that they feel blessed to have had the experience on March 13th, 1997. That doesn't happen with planes and helicopters and flares and whatever, okay? It really hit people at a very deep level. In fact, I'll just intersect here that in real time itself, we are so inundated with threat, and harm from movies, from Hollywood, from media, that Dr. Gary Schwartz, the head of the Consciousness Study Department at University of Arizona, who's in our documentary, makes a very poignant statement to say, if you are inundated with fear about something, how do you think you're going to feel when you see that something, right? So kids who had just seen the movie Independence Day, which was very popular then, were jumping up and down as this bee is coming towards them. Independence Day. But as it came closer, interestingly, a calmness came over everyone, a connectiveness to the phenomena that after it passed, they wanted to chase after it. They wanted their parents to get into the car and run after it. And that's in real time. It changed people, whoever was driving this, whoever's behind it. And it's so fascinating. Half my books about this and more. It absolutely transformed people to the positive in real time. And long term, people went into the environmental movement, went into the peace movement. We're going to get to that because it changed people forever. Go ahead.
Dr. Lynne, I'd love to just jump in here because I think it's the perfect time. And I know you're still telling the story, but every once in a while we're going to dive in and ask a question because we asked some of our viewers to write questions to you on Facebook. And Ella wanted to know, who do you think was piloting the craft, government or alien? And if alien, which kind? I realize that's probably very hard to answer, but I thought it was a good time to throw that one in.
Well, I don't know what they were or who's behind it, but I know that they were. And that it's time to get this out in the open. And that's why I finally came forward after 7 years of anonymity to set the record straight, because there's so much more to this story than people have probably ever heard. But also that hopefully it'll open the door to study. We need to study these data to find out who is driving these things. I mean, we don't know, and we can speculate that they could be interstellar, interdimensional, which, by the way, is my gut feeling because I saw them up close and personal. They cloaked right in front of me. Okay, they disappeared, but felt like they were still there for weeks. Doctor. Okay, and there's a lot more to this, a lot that I'm going to get to if we have time. But also, time travelers. Some experts feel that there's a runaway runaway civilization. And now we know that they're coming forward with pictures, and the Navy pilots are coming forward with these submersibles that are coming in and out of the ocean. And with 70% of the world having ocean, I mean, they could have been here for millennia. So I don't know who's driving these things. I really hope I find out in my own lifetime. But to move forward on the story, which is fascinating in itself, after people are seeing them right above their heads, rooftop level. Some people said they could have thrown a rock at it. No investigation, no explanation, nothing from the military or the government. It was just uncanny. In May, and now this is March 13th, in May, Councilwoman, then Phoenix Councilwoman Vice Mayor Frances Barwood had received over 1,000 calls from people. Why isn't there an investigation? Why isn't there an explanation? She innocently, and I'm going to get to what you said, Chris, because this is really important here. She innocently asked for an investigation at a council meeting, and she was plastered by the media. They made little jokes out of her, of her in the newspaper. At the time in '97, and I was so happy that I had stayed anonymous for 7 years, doing my homework. There was such ridicule and snickering and laughing and discredited. I mean, we actually had media that tried to discredit Jim Delatoso and Frances Barwood. It was ugly. It was really...
Even the governor made a joke.
Well, I'm going to get to that. It was really scary to come forward. And anyway, she, kind of put a lid on things, and people were afraid to come forward and all that. Suddenly, on June 18th, I mean, as the story unfolds, it is so interesting because on June 18th, after nothing, suddenly there's a front page USA Today article that opened our sighting to international scrutiny. We didn't have social media at the time, and it went viral overnight. By the next morning, every national news station, as well as Dan Rather, Peter Jennings, I mean, you name it, they were talking about the Phoenix Lights. And by late morning, that morning, there we go. There's the article, multi-page article. It was amazing. For the first time, people were hearing about this outside of Arizona. And we were deluged by media from all over the world. And when they would talk to the witnesses, their reports were so detailed and so heartfelt that they too were asking, why isn't there an investigation? Why isn't there an explanation? And then suddenly, out of nowhere, we get a public announcement that then former Governor Fife Symington was calling a press conference for that afternoon. Okay, we'll get to that. That's near the end. Okay, we'll get to that because that afternoon, he had this unscheduled press conference to reveal the culprit of the lights over Phoenix. And he comes marching out, one of his aides, with a giant alien head costume and made a mockery of it, which was really disconcerting, especially for parents.
And he was a witness too.
Well, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that. Don't be a spoiler. We're going to get to that. We're going to get to that because that's one of the good parts of this. Okay, spoiler alert. But anyway, at the time, he was making a joke out of it, and it wasn't a joke. I mean, parents were really disconcerted. They, here they were with their kids seeing something that's, 2 and 3 and 4 moles wide, and he's making a mockery of it. Well, again, that really put a lid on it. And the next thing we know, and that after that, it wasn't a joke to me, particularly because I saw these up close and personal. So I started calling every military base and to see what they knew. And they were more interested in hearing and seeing my data. And I never gave them details about what I saw or what I photographed, but they were just as curious as everyone else. In fact, I have some of their conversations, which are comical in the book. One very high up said, "Oh, the only ones that know this are God and whoever did it." That's from the military. Okay. Anyway, I get a call. That's interesting. I get a call a month later, July 24th, from one of the heads of PR at the Air National Guard. And she says, "Oh, Dr. Lynne, I think we know what those lights were back in March." And I was thrilled. I was looking for any logical explanation. She says, "Do you believe that nobody ever looked at the log for visiting Air National Guard? And the Maryland Air National Guard was in town sending off military illumination flares in Operation Snowbird," which I later found out in military terms means diversionary tactical maneuvers. So the military was very aware. So they may have been sending off flares to divert attention away from the true unknowns. But I have to tell you, there is not one report from anyone that saw the true unknowns that are similar to flares. Because I said to her, wait a minute. When was the Maryland Air National Guard in town? She said March 1st to the 15th. I said, were they in town in January? She said, oh no. I said, are you sure? She said, absolutely not. I said, well, my husband and I saw the same phenomena in the same location 2 months before the mass sighting. I actually got pictures of it and confirmed the next morning by air traffic controllers at Sky Harbor International Airport as hovering over Class B restricted airspace in January and in the same location the morning after they shared with me on March 13th during the mass sighting. And she says to me, you never told me that. And then I said, besides that, you're trying to tell me, and again, I educated myself to anything logical, including flares, that military illumination flares that cannot keep information, they're dropped from planes on a parachute and they drift and drop haphazardly downward and with the wind, have huge smoke trails that are illuminated by the flare itself and are meant to illuminate the area around it. That's why they use them, so that missiles will hit them instead of the planes. And you're trying to tell me that flares that cannot keep information for more than a couple seconds traverse the entire state in a rock solid, equidistantly spaced, mile wide V formation for hours? And she said, I have a call coming in. I'll get back to you. I'm still waiting, guys. But wait, here we go. Okay. So, like I said, the data speaks for itself. And thank you for showing that, because the top formation are actually the orbs on the left there are from a Stephenville sighting, very similar to ours. The middle one is a picture that I took 1 month after 9/11. I would love somebody to tell me what that is. Okay. We actually on the website have that up against a daylight sighting of discs that were shot in 1960, I believe, in Italy. And the last one is also a picture that I took of the true unknowns compared to flares. I mean, give me a break. You can't even compare them. I think we have another picture. Do we have another picture of that? Yes, there we go. Okay, there's the second picture a month before, and there's the boomerang, which, by the way, the boomerang has been the one that has been under fire for being flares. I still have people tell me about this show, and I just want to interject this real quick. Months later in August, a production company came to Phoenix to do a show called Anatomy of a Sighting that was supposed to be very generic. In the meantime, during the show, and I met with the producer, and I tried to show him my pictures from 2 months before. He wouldn't even look at them. He said, oh, the military said they were flares. And the red flag went up immediately. And in the show, which they played ad nauseum during peak hours in Thanksgiving and Christmas and whatever, they tried to show that this boomerang went behind the mountain and was coordinated with the mountain range. So it was flares from Davis Mountain and Tucson. Okay. In the meantime, just because it went behind the mountain doesn't mean they're flares. As I told you, in 2 months before, the air traffic controller said that this entire formation that was over Class B restricted airspace turned against the wind, elevated slowly, and then moved in synchrony behind South Mountain. So just because it went behind the mountain doesn't mean it's flares. But even better, if you go to the news page on the Phoenix Lights Network website and you take a look at this, it's a recent news report of this guy that took software that actually shows how rock solid those orbs are. And in fact, and that doesn't happen for minutes. Okay. And one of them actually elevates and then splits in two. Flares don't do that either.
Right.
But what was really amazing is that then I got off the phone with this air traffic controller. And I called my sister-in-law back east in Delaware to wish her happy birthday on the 24th of July. That was her birthday. And the first thing she says to me, we hadn't even heard about it here yet. Okay, I heard about it, but the public hadn't. She says to me, oh, we just saw in the news that the lights that you saw in March were flares. They heard about it before we did. Okay. The next morning, across the paper, Phoenix lights were flares. Okay. Talk about frustrating.
Right. Dr. Lynne, do you believe that this was an intentional disinformation campaign? I mean, did they intentionally put out there that these were flares? And what do you think the motive is for them to do that? Why would they want to move us away from the truth?
Why do you think they want to move us away? Well, no, I have to say that whoever came up with the flare thing was brilliant because, again, in video, they're much smaller, they're white, they flicker, and they could be mistaken for flares. In real life, they're huge balls of spinning energy. Actually, people saw them up close and personal, as I did myself. But yeah, I mean, they had to come up with something. There was, actually, Symington, who later said that there was panic, so that's why he did the joke with the alien head. There wasn't panic from, as I mentioned, from the witnesses themselves. If anything, there was awe and wonder and just joy when they saw the Phoenix Light. There was panic, I'm sure, with the military and the government because they didn't know what to do with this. Okay, they had to come up with something. And again, that it was brilliant. It was a month after they didn't have to say anything until the USA Today article came out. They had to come up with something, and it was a month later. Okay, and then we fast forward. Here's where it really gets interesting again, because 3 years later, and anybody that's feeding into the flare theory, just take a look at this video, okay, on the news page. 3 years later, the then former vice mayor of Phoenix, Francis Barwood, was running as Secretary of State to get answers for the lights over Phoenix and asking for a reenactment. I'm a show me person. Healthy skeptic, show me. Okay. If it's military, shame on them for denying it for months and going right over people's heads and all that. But if it was them, show me. Right. Well, we get an announcement right before the 3rd anniversary that 3 Air National Guards were coming into Phoenix to show everyone the Phoenix lights. I think it was New York, Michigan, and California. They must have been practicing for weeks. They tried to make a triangle. And again, if you go on the news page on the Phoenix Lights Network website, I really tried to put as much as I could on there for the public. But if you go to the news page and you look a little down the page, you'll see a block that says AZ family, and you'll see they tried to make a triangle. It was upside down. It fell apart immediately and fizzled out. It had huge smoke trails, just with flares too. To date, we have never seen the Phoenix Lights recreated or explained, and they never addressed the craft, the actual gunmetal craft that people saw. And some people saw these crafts that blocked out the I mean, it was amazing, the descriptions that blocked out the stars. It looked like water. I mean, the descriptions are just really amazing. Then we fast forward again, and I'm always getting through there's a lot more to the story, but I'm getting through the high points, and then I'm going to get to the connection between all unexplained phenomena that I discovered. But we fast forward again to what you mentioned, Chris, right after the 10th anniversary of the mass sighting, for whatever reason. And I had already come forward in 2004 to divulge my book and so forth. Suddenly, we have the former governor, Vice Symington, and we can show his picture now, came forward to say that he actually witnessed one of these craft, one of these over mile wide craft. And as an awarded military pilot, in his estimation, not only was it definitely not flares, but it was otherworldly. And we would hear this around the world from other countries. That's the word that they would use, which is really curious, that it was otherworldly. And he used the same word. And we have his interview, or CNN interview, on the website as well, which is really informative. And, I have to say it was very brave for him to come forward. It was really a giant step forward. The more credible people that come forward, the more credibility it lends to the mass sighting, including the fact that in 2017, we have the announcement by the New York Times that the Pentagon, Harry Reid, $22 million study, were actually studying these UAP, they call them now, the military and government. Shortly after that, it was interesting. The morning after the mass sighting, when I called the air traffic controllers, not only did they verify that it was the same exact phenomena over the same exact Class B restricted airspace, 1,000 feet altitude, but that there were pilots that called into the tower, which I found very significant. Okay, here's pilots. One was a commercial airline pilot on departure that called in to say, what the hell are these lights over me? And a private pilot called in to say that he was seeing this V of 6 lights. Well, interestingly, That's what I saw first, and ran out to grab my video camera. And by the time I got out there and focused, it changed to the 3 endpoints of a giant Beer triangle. And so he was seeing it while I was photographing it. He finally came forward, this private pilot, and I mentioned it in the initial book, the 2004 book. But now we know who that pilot was. It was actor Kurt Russell, who, yes, yay.
I love that.
Yes.
Hey, Dr. Lynne,
Yes.
can I want to get this question in because I'm so scared we're going to run out of time without getting it. I love that Kurt saw that and that he came forward. I think that's amazing.
Yes.
There's a connection that people may not know because they know some of the details of this story, but they may not know that, like you said, you were going to bring up this whole paranormal connection, even near-death experiences. There's a connection with that. Can you get into that quickly?
Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing that up, because half my book is about this. Half is about the Phoenix Lights and the history, which is enormous. We don't have time to get into that since human documentation began, and very similar to what we saw in Phoenix, okay, through history, including the Foo Fighters in World War II, when each country thought the other country had the spy technology. But how it affected people in real time and long term, and also a number of witnesses had shared with me that they had had near-death experiences as children that was reawakened by the Phoenix Lights mass sighting, which really hit me hard because I did too. And we won't have time to get into it. I lay it all out there in the book, but it changed my life forever as a child.
You got to give us at least a little bit. Just a little bit.
All I can say is that it changed my life. I came back with such knowledge from my near-death experience, and that's why I thought maybe there is. And I always say the 3 A's: awareness of what comes before you, that it's there for a reason. Why do you have that opportunity? And I've always tried to take advantage of that opportunity. If you read my bio, you'll know why. Okay. And as well as attitude. Positive attitude brings positive energy to you. That's a whole nother thing. And I see it in medicine all the time. And appreciation. The 3 A's. If I can lend that to the audience, and if they read the book and they'll learn more about it,
Did you become spiritual?
Well, that's the thing. It really wakes you up, and so does the Phoenix Lights. I'm going to get to that, because what I thought is, wow, could there be a connection to all unexplained phenomena, whether it's out-of-body experience, unexplained aerial phenomena, or near-death experience with a mystical light associated with the experience? And lo and behold, just like with the UFO topic, when I started really looking for credible data, there's university studies. The Omega Project at University of Connecticut, Dr. Kenneth Ring, like a 3-inch thick book, Dr. John Mack, who I actually had my first presentation at the Tucson Medical Center a month before I came forward in 2004. And we conversed about this. He was writing a book about this before he was tragically killed in a car accident in London. But at any rate, I found a connection, not only in the experience itself, and I described some of that in my own experience in '95 with seeing a light and feeling an intelligent presence and telepathy and coming back with knowledge. It's not believing anymore. It's a knowing. It's a knowing. And the after effect, the positive transformation, the awakening, the enlightenment, the connectedness between the earth and the universe and each other, which is felt within a person who has an up experience. I started calling UP, unexplained phenomena, up, because it is an up. It's a positive experience that changes the person forever. Again, it's not a belief anymore. It's a knowing. And for the Phoenix Lights, people ask me all the time, what was the meaning of the Phoenix Lights? And, again, half the book is about this and about the spiritual awakening that happens within a person that has an up experience. And you don't have to have an up experience to have this positive transformation. All you need to do is open your mind and your heart and learn about it. And you'll start to recognize, if you really open up to serendipities, and I also give 10 ways to meditate and to communicate with these other intelligences. They're out there waiting for us to connect with them.
Doctor, you said that you communicated with other intelligence. Are you an abductee?
I am a contactee. Okay, I don't go there.
Nobody
Okay,
knows
it's
that, Doctor.
very.
You got to answer that question here.
Oh
If
yeah,
you're a
like I told you, I let it all out
contactee,
there.
I have never heard about you being a contactee. That's amazing. Please tell us, how did you become a contactee?
Well, like I told you, number one, we had missing time going on in about 95, excuse me, with the close sighting. What I told you is what I remember. But as a child, I did meet during my near-death experience. I don't want to, it's a long story, but I did meet three beings, giant beings in glowing white robes above the earth
Wow.
that were watching us. You ever hear about the Watchers in,
Yeah.
our ancient writings? And I came back with such knowledge, not only beyond my age. I was very naive. I was a singer dancer on television and a professional musical theater for years, which I'll tell you a little story if we have time about Raising Arizona. Remind me. But another little coincidence. But I also came back feeling that those beings, and I thought they were spirit world. Okay, they knew who I was. They had unconditional love. I mean, I really get into the details in the book, but I have felt that they have been with me since a child. And I don't hear voices, but I get feelings for things, strong feelings. And when I meditate, I get answers, I get feelings, and I've always gone with those feelings, and it's taken me to a positive place. So I've trusted in the guidance. And again, I thought that they were spirit world since the mass sighting and the Phoenix lights. I don't know what they were, to tell you the truth. Okay, but nonetheless, I do get downloads all the time, and for anybody who wants to know more, please read the
I've
book.
heard of a spiritual guide. Do you have a spiritual guide, you
Well,
think?
I have felt that they have been with me since I was a child, and actually, when I've come to crossroads in my life, big crossroads, including a month before I started medical school. Wait, how much time do we have? Because I want to make sure that
Well,
I get
I
this in.
just, you're
Well,
saying a
wait,
lot of
wait,
key words in there that's
wait.
picking my
Okay,
brain. I mean, you're
okay.
frying it, to be honest with you. I
Well, we
mean,
don't want that. We don't. We
well,
want
I
to
mean, you're
open up and
saying,
expand your mind.
well,
But wait a
if
minute,
you
this is a good
expand it
story.
anymore, I'm going to drop dead. So,
Well,
I
don't do
mean,
that. This is a good story. A month before I started medical school, I was touring with Barbara Eden in Sound of Music. I understudied her in the part of Maria in Sound of Music. I had done numerous shows with Betty Grable and Guys and Dolls and Gordon McRae in Oklahoma and Sherman Hemsley and Alice in Wonderland. And anyway, I was touring with her at the time, and I was called to audition for the part of the ingenue in the movie of the book Exodus, Leon Uris, the hit movie with Paul Newman and the hit book. And I was starting medical school in a month, and it got down to two of us. And coincidentally, the other girl I went to elementary school with, Jacqueline Mayrow, she was a prima ballerina that ended up to be Baby June in the original Gypsy with Ethel Merman. But anyway, it got down to the two of us, and I had to make a decision. I mean, my goodness, here the book and the movie were big hits, and I'm being invited by the author to do this musical, which I thought would also be a big hit. And I really did some soul searching and asked for guidance. And the answer that I got when I meditated, and again, I have what you do in the book. The answer I got is I had to go to medical school, and one day I would know why. And I told Leon Uris, he wasn't very happy with me, but the show went on the road like they do before it opens on Broadway, opened on Broadway, closed in 3 weeks. I would have been dead meat. No, I was accepted to 5 medical schools. No medical school would have accepted me if they knew that I hadn't gone because I did Broadway. The other thing was, after everything happened with the Phoenix Lights, I didn't know what to do with what I had. And this is getting to your earlier question, because I did not want to come forward. It was much too precarious. And I went back to work at the Arizona Heart Institute to help put our younger son through medical school. He's a neurologist now. While I pared down the 750-page journal that I had written over 7 years to 230 pages behind closed doors, when I finally did, after much soul searching, because I just wanted to get the data out there. I mean, I really didn't know what to do. And my friends would tell me, once I started sharing what was going on, Lynn, you've been doing this for 50 years on vital health issues, or 30 years at the time. Do it for this issue. And I figured, you know what? I just asked for guidance. I said, if I'm really supposed to do something credible and professional with this, show me the way. I don't need to do this. Believe me, I live a very, very happy, wonderful life with a wonderful family.
I mean,
But
you're
I
an
need,
accomplished doctor.
but Chris, I need to do this. For whatever reason, I have been inspired to do this. And if I can be a credible voice so people actually look at the data, then I've done my job. So that was another time that I just laid it out there, show me the way, and the puzzle pieces just keep falling in line. Here's another little coincidence. You ready? Raising Arizona by the Coen brothers. For anybody that's seen it out there, it's a giant hit, iconic movie, 20th Century Fox. 10 years before the mass sighting, 1987, it premiered. Okay, I played the part, and for anybody that hasn't seen it, it's a black comedy about Nicolas Cage and Holly Hunter can't conceive, so they kidnap one of the Arizona quintuplets, and I played the mother of the quintuplets, Florence, Arizona. And if anybody ever comes up to me and says they recognize me, I'll be mortified because it's a big character role. But anyway, the cast was amazing. Frances McDormand and John Goodman and William Forsythe, amazing cast. And at any rate, unbeknownst to me, I hadn't watched it since the late 80s when it came out. When I came forward in 2004, I started touring, and I think it was at a MUFON meeting actually where I was speaking. Somebody had mentioned that I had done Raising Arizona, and a fella came up afterwards and he said, there's a reference to your character in UFOs in Raising Arizona. And I said, really? I had not remembered. I hadn't watched it for so long. I went back to look. After one of the babies is, now this is amazing. After one of the babies is kidnapped by Nicolas Cage and Holly Hunter, there's a press conference in front of our home with my husband. And a reporter sticks a microphone in his face and says, "There's a rumor your son was abducted by UFOs. Is there any truth to that?" And my husband says, "Oh, please, son, please don't print that. If his mama reads that, she'll lose all hope," which is totally opposite for my own take. But nonetheless, it's the only reference in the entire film, 10 years before the mass sighting, to UFOs. Not only that, it gets better. The cinematographer, who was also just getting started, as many of the stars now were, also went on to do Big with Tom Hanks, When Harry Met Sally with Billy Crystal, How the West Was Won with Will Smith, and created and directed, drum roll, the Men in Black series, which opened in 1997, the same year as the Phoenix Lights.
Wow.
Coincidence?
Wow. Cool. I love that.
That's wild. We only have maybe 7 minutes left. I would like to get into some of your books, talk about your website, your other book. Can you talk about the inspiration for your
thank you
UFOs
so
and Crop
much.
Circles coloring book?
Yes,
I
we
love
have
it.
the book is actually in its 4th print. I recommend the ebook only because not only does it have color pictures, it also has live links. If I'm an educator, that's one of the main reasons I came forward, is to help educate, raise awareness. If people choose to look at it, it is a choice, and grow from it. We have the documentary, and then I am working on a curriculum. I have been working on a curriculum for almost a decade now to get into the classroom, as I have for my other Discovery Education, actually distributed my AIDS and teen pregnancy and substance abuse prevention education programs. And for the 20th anniversary, I thought, how cool would it be to get a graphic novel activities coloring book, if you want to put that up again, that actually is for all ages. It's called the Phoenix Lights, UFOs and Crop Circles Coloring Book, Adventures of Sue F.O. and Hugh F.O. H-U-G-H-U-F-O. He's a Lillian. We had a Discovery, we had a Disney illustrator, we had teachers, Kate. I mean, such amazing people worked on this. David, who is in Denver, is a map maker, and he drew to scale the 10 different craft to color, as well as 80 crop circles in there. We have activities, word games, and crop circles, and crossword puzzles, and even the answers. So I did that, and it's 160 pages, okay, so that we can have the story of the Phoenix Lights through Sue and you, but so the teachers can use it, which they are, and parents and grandparents can do it with their kids and grandkids and learn about it. And, people have said to me, first of all, that's the trilogy. They're all available on Amazon. They're all available through the website, which is free and packed with information to can explore and consider the Phoenix Lights Network website, www.thephoenixlights.net. And just to end it up, I mean, people ask me all the time, why did the Phoenix Lights happen? Why were they here? And I have to say that not only whoever did this, and you asked that earlier, and again, we don't know who did this, but we know that it really happened, that affected people at such a deep, deep soul level. Not only did it wake people up to their presence in a very gentle, non-threatening way, but it also woke people up one person at a time. And that's significant, just as I'm trying to do with my data, my trilogy, and being here today. But the Phoenix Lights definitely woke one person up at a time to not only their presence and that we're not alone in this universe, but to the spiritual, potentially good people, human beings that we are, that we have so much potential to make this world a better world and to relate and connect with the wondrous universe is just waiting for us to connect with them. We are not alone.
Yeah. That's beautiful, Dr. Lynn. And you even hear of contactees and abductees that, it may start out as a frightening experience for them, but somewhere along the way, these change into a spiritual awakening. And I think you're touching on something that we like to talk about, right, Katie, a lot on the show is that piece of this puzzle. And I don't think there's any denying that it's a very important piece to this whole phenomenon.
Absolutely, Katie. In fact, Ruth Hover, who is no longer with us, who was a MUFON member. I mean, she had a group and she taught me so much herself. She says in the documentary, which is very poignant, is that when somebody has an experience, okay, it tells more about them when they talk about the experience, whether they're frightened or they're apprehensive or they're thrilled or they're at peace with the experience, than it does about the experience itself. And she even shared with me that after a while, and so did John Mack as well, Dr. John Mack, that after they really talk about it, and that's why it's so healing and cathartic. And as a physician, I understand how important it is that in this experience or to share it, even with one person. I always invite people to share on Facebook with me or go to the website, and contact is right on top. Even with one person is healing and cathartic. It transforms you to a good place, even if initially maybe it wasn't because of your own feelings and your own fear about certain things or about the situation. They ultimately feel a connectiveness to the beings and to what happened as an incredible experience that transforms to a good place. And that's why I always call them an up.
I love that.
I love that.
We're literally down to our last few minutes now, but could you maybe just in a minute or two at the most, like describe your intense dream experience that led to automatic writing? Because I think that might be something our viewers would love.
All right. Well, as I mentioned, there were a number. I mean, what I shared today, guys, is just the tip of the iceberg, if you can believe that. Right? This was a 750-page journal, okay? And I've added, it's in its fourth print, I've added chapters as it's unfolded with the governor coming forward and Kurt Russell coming forward and the military and government coming forward. There's a lot of juicy stuff in there as the story has evolved, and I suspect that it will continue to evolve. But one of the things that happened a month after the mass sighting, there were so many paranormal things, but one of the most impactful things for me personally, and by the way, I also share a picture, a new picture in the original Hampton Roads publisher thought it would confuse the public too much, but for me, it did it for me. It actually made it possible for me to be here today. And I'm not going to spoil it for you guys, but I share a picture that my older son, who is the biggest skeptic of the family, he said, "Mom, they're going to find out it was military. You better not come forward," actually took of a kitten that he got on the 25th, on the 25th of March, okay, the 10th anniversary of my mom's passing, who he was very, very close with before she passed. And she is in the picture. That did it for me. 10 years after she passed. And this has been analyzed. She's in the picture 10 years after she passed. So this is real. That really did it for me. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. I know that it's real. And I know that she would have said, "Get off your butt and do this. This is real." So, because she was an amazing, amazing person. So I'll leave that for the person to read when they do. But I'm going to read to you. A month after the mass sighting, I had a dream experience that really was mind-boggling. I was sucked out of my body. I was surrounded by light. It was a sign that I asked for. Okay.
Okay, and we've got about 2 minutes. Will it fit in
Okay, here
about
we
2
go.
minutes?
Yes, here we go.
Awesome.
And I had automatic writing. My husband had the same dream, and I ran downstairs and wrote this down with my eyes closed. I don't know about other living creatures in the vast universe, but questions keep permeating my mind about the ones who are trying to get our attention now. What if these beings are as advanced spiritually as they are technologically? What if they want to share this beautiful and wondrous future with us? And what if they have already met our spirit world and know firsthand that the essence of who we are is pure? They may only be trying to help us recognize the positive spirit deep within and teach us to know ourselves for who we really are before we destroy our world. Each and every one of us is a powerful being with the strength and wisdom to deeply appreciate our earth and every living creature on it. It is time we view ourselves in a new light. This can begin by searching within ourselves to find goodness and love so that the consciousness of humankind can elevate spiritually above petty differences, envy, greed, lies, hatred, abuse, violence, and fear. That is our destiny. But only if each one of us chooses to look within our own soul for the answers. They are there. It isn't too late. Humankind can begin this very moment to learn and grow so that our future will benefit from our newfound knowledge, not be pulled down by our self-serving primal ignorance. It is so very important to look within yourself and to believe. Believe in yourself. Judge yourself each and every day. There will come a time when you will indeed judge every moment of your own life, the good things, the bad, the kindness, and the wrath that you and you alone have brought to other human beings, to other living things, to our earth. You will feel like what it felt like to be on the receiving end. Near-death experiences have told us time and time again that when we die, we go through a life review. God does not judge us. We judge ourselves. So maybe we should judge ourselves now. Think clearly about how we treat others, the energy and dedication we put into our relationships, especially our family, as well as our relationship to other living things we touch in this short but precious existence. So when our time does come, we won't have to endure pain and sadness, but rather we will be drenched in the ecstasy of our own love, in the magnificent light of love. And if each of us truly looks deep within, the positive energies each one of us possesses will be shared around the world. Then our beautiful journey to a new reality will have begun.
Yay! What a wonderful way to end the show. Oh my goodness. I went through a whole tub of popcorn, Chris. This was one heck of a show. Thank you, Dr. Lynne, so much for being here. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Amanda and Bill Skywatcher, our producers. And keep looking up. Keep reporting your stuff to move on. And next Tuesday, we have James Goodall. So you don't want to miss that. Thank you all for being here. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.